Hello everyone, RetroChris here, and after streaming for just over 9 months, I decided to go back to my childhood roots and stream some good old retro games, both for my own entertainment, but also as a way of showing off all these old classics to a new audience. And with that comes a new series here on YouTube as well. In this series, I will go back to play the games that I remember from my childhood, or never got to play while I was young, to take a look at the most important question of them all. Have they stood the test of time? If I pick up this game in 2023, will I enjoy it? Is it as good as I remember? Is it worth giving a chance if you never played it before? These are some of the questions I will be answering in this series, spanning from games on classic Nintendo and Sega to the Nintendo 64, Game Boy games, as well as games for Windows. So with that said, let's get right into episode number 1. And the first game out is Super Mario 64. Super Mario 64 is still considered one of the greatest games ever made, and it was groundbreaking when it came out in 1996. I still remember when I got my first Nintendo 64. I guess I was around 12 years old or something like that when we got one, and my first meeting with the 3D world was Super Mario 64. Released by Nintendo in 1996, this game is now 27 years old. This was one of 2 launch titles for the Nintendo 64, along with Pilotwings 64, and was a pioneer for all 3D platform games to come, with its open worlds, 360-degree analog controls, and for the most part, dynamic camera. So at its time, it was blowing everyone's mind. But as with all games back then, you didn't really have much to compare it to. So from now, having played the newer platforming games like Super Mario Oddysey or Super Mario Galaxy, and its smooth controls and amazing graphics, how does it feel to pick this one up today? Let's first take a look at the first thing that meets your eye, the graphics. You can't expect amazing graphics from a 27-year-old 3D platforming game, but surprisingly, it holds up really well. And that is mostly to do with the art style itself, as it doesn't really require detailed textures, and the colorful environments make it enjoyable to watch even today. When you look closely at it, no, obviously it doesn't look good, and at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of polygons smashed together to make some graphics. But the beauty is not in the details. It's almost amazing how they did such a smooth transfer from a 2D platformer to a 3D environment. When you take a good look at the map design and the layout, it's basically a 2D platformer in a 3D environment, and that's why these games still looks and feels so good. The variety in the maps does make it feel refreshing to play as well, spanning from grassy hills to lava pits, to underwater levels, to an inside of a clock. Though I do have to say, it does have too many water levels for my taste. My favorite world though has to be the tiny huge island, with its fun mechanics of turning the world either really small or really big, making you able to collect different stars depending on the size. And of course Bob-Bomb's battlefield, seeing as you can't fall off the map, and it is just a colorful world that seems to be alive in general. I love it. Super Mario 64 is more than just a standard platformer. This is not about running from point A to point B, as the first Mario games was all about. You have open maps that spans from relatively small to medium sized, and your goal in each world is to collect 6 stars, plus 1 more star for gathering 100 coins. You choose a start at the beginning of the level, but you are free to pursue any star that you want, with some limitation as some stars will only be available later. But the gameplay still makes you feel like you play every world as an open world, where you are free to do whatever you want. The stars that you collect is done by doing a lot of different activities. It could be a race against an opponent, it can be both easy or difficult puzzles to solve, or even mini-boss fights. Sometimes the stars you choose at the beginning will give you a clear hint of what you're supposed to do to collect it. Other times, It's really cryptic. The game even have a lot of secret stars that you need to find on your own by exploring the castle. Having a total of 15 different worlds to explore, there is more than enough to keep you entertained for hours, and varied enough that you don't get bored while playing either. There are 120 stars to collect total, and most of them are unique in how you achieve them. That is pretty impressive. As for the difficulty, I feel it ramps up gradually in a natural and fair way. It starts off with some really basic stars, which explains flat out what you're supposed to do. Then the challenge lies in figuring out what you are supposed to do for each star. In my opinion, that's almost where the entire challenge lies. Except those instances, of course, where you have to do some really difficult platform jumping, or some of the collections of the red coins and some certain stars. But that's the fun kind of difficulty. Not the unfair enemies or jumps, super difficult puzzles or tedious tasks, but figuring out what you are supposed to do. That in itself is sort of a puzzle element, and I love it. Is this game overall easy? Absolutely not. I would actually go as far as saying that this is a pretty difficult game if you are going for 100% completion with 120 stars. Some worlds are more difficult than others, mostly the ones where it's really easy to fall off the edge to your death. Some stars are actually really challenging to get as well, but again, mostly because one little mistake and you fall off the map. But then again, it doesn't really feel that unfair. You just need to have the right amount of patience and skill. Combine this with the amount of time you will be spending trying to figure out what to do to get the different stars, and you will consume a lot of hours in this game. Navigating through the worlds still feels pretty good after all these years. The camera is far from perfect and will now and then make it really difficult for you, but in total, the controls are still really smooth. The ability to jump, double jump or triple jump, do backflips or even side flicks still makes you feel like you have almost full control of the movement. And when you die, it's often because you rushed it or did a mistake. Mario has so many different movements that you can use to your advantage, and the variation makes it really fun to play. Where the game lacks is in its precision, especially when that is combined with camera movement. Walking across small platforms, turning around, jumping somewhere your camera is locked can be quite an annoyance and result in some raging moments. But even though the camera can be a real pain sometimes, all in all, the controls still feel really good. And even if you're used to playing games like Super Mario Galaxy or Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario 64 isn't really that much worse. A bit of a struggle sometimes. Like that, for example. You! Oh my god, no, Mario! I said not that much worse. A game is nothing without a fitting soundtrack, and Super Mario 64 got so many amazing soundtracks in it. Every Super Mario soundtrack from any of the Super Mario games are instantly recognized, and it's easy to name the game and the level it's from, and Super Mario 64 is no exception. The music varies from really upbeat, fun tracks that really gives you that Super Mario feeling, while other tracks have a bit more calm, soothing music that fits perfectly with the more slowed down gameplay of an underwater level. Honestly, there isn't a single soundtrack I would change out in this game, as I feel all of them fits perfectly to its respective world. The entire sound library in the game reflects a really cheerful atmosphere that makes the game feel even more inviting to play. Every move or jump you do, Mario makes a different sound. Every enemy has their unique sound, and in total, every sound in the game makes it feel so alive. The game did a really good job with the sound. So how does it feel to play Super Mario 64 after all these years? Honestly, It's still one of the best games I've ever played, and even though it's impossible to know this, I would imagine if I played this game for the first time today, the outdated graphics and the at times unwilling camera wouldn't really bother me that much. This game is just a joy to play. The entire game feels like an open playground where you can have tons of fun, and the freedom to choose which star to pursue feels amazing for such an old game. Many modern games are made so linear that it doesn't give you this sense of freedom. Again, this was one of the features that made Super Mario 64 such a pioneer for its time. Never for a single second did I feel bored during this game through. I went for all 120 stars, which took me around 10 hours, but still, I didn't feel 1 second of boredom. And even though I've played this game many times before, it still felt like a real challenge. And the challenge was in figuring out what to do for the different stars. But then again, this kinda just contributed to making me have this authentic feeling of playing this game for the first time. This was not the first time I completed it, and it won't be the last. Having a game that has this level of replayability just tells you how good it is. And we can't talk about Super Mario 64 without talking about the ending. And this might sound weird, but when I played through this game for the second time as an adult, this ending made me cry. There is just something really beautiful about the ending that really just shows how much the developers of the game truly appreciates that you, specifically, took your time to play their game. The whole final part of the game comes forth as a love letter from the people who made this game. Not only the love for all the players who chose to play the game, but also how much they loved making it. The way Mario looks up at you as the game ends, you can almost sense a bit of sadness in him. Sad that the adventure is over and your ways are parting, and who knows if you will ever see each other again. There is something bittersweet about it, how just a simple look from Mario combined with the music makes you so emotional for completing a video game, just showcases how amazing this game is. Playing this game reminded me of when I played Super Mario 64 for the first time. Every day after school, me and my friends would take a pillow each and sit down in front of the TV playing Super Mario 64 for hours, days, and weeks. We spent so many hours watching each other play, and it felt like we truly were on an adventure together. And games was like that back then. We didn't just play a game, it was truly an adventure, a story that we all were a part of. They made us come closer together as friends because we shared these memories that we would have for the rest of our lives. The frustration, excitement, laughter, the ups and downs, we all share them and we all remember them. But then, after endless hours of playing together, the adventure comes to an end, and then you sit there feeling a bit empty inside. You get a reminder that it wasn't the goal you were playing for, but for the adventure. And the longer the adventure lasted, the more time you spent together with your best friends. And looking back, I didn't know. I didn't know that this would be the last adventure me and my friends would venture on together, as life happens and we grew apart. And maybe that's why this music makes me feel a bit emotional, as it reminds me of a time I will never get back. And if I only knew that this would be the last adventure, I would at least say goodbye to my friends. This also reminds me of how happy I am that I decided to start streaming, because now I can come close to doing what we did when we were young, playing games together, going on an adventure, share new memories, the ups and downs, the excitement and joy. So I am really thankful every single day that I have people that want to be there when I stream, that encourage me when I struggle and share my happiness when we succeed. And that goes out to all of you who watch this video as well. thank you so much for watching and have an amazing day. See ya.